Welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Let's talk money.
And welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. So, we're always out here and we're all these PF guys talking about this and that. But one thing we've never gotten to on this show is our favorite personal finance software. And there's a lot out there, and there's new stuff popping up every day. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun today and actually talk about what each of our individual favorites are. And I think, it'll be interesting to see if we have some of the same stuff in common or different ones. And I think it'll be really great for the listener, you as the listener, to see what really works out there, because it is kind of inundating to see everything pop up in, let's say, the iTunes store for the latest software or this and that. So let's get started here. Welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. We like to have these episodes where it's just us. And here is who the Money Mastermind Show is. We have Kyle Prevost of youngandthrifty.ca. We have Miranda Marquette of Planting Money Seeds. Peter Anderson of Bible Money Matters, Tom Drake of the Canadian Finance Blog, and I'm Glen Craig of Free From Broke. So, favorite personal finance software. Personal finance software, that's a pretty big umbrella, pretty big subject. I think a lot of things fall into that. But let's throw out some favorites out there and why you use them and why you like them.
First of all, I wonder if we should talk about why is it important to be using some sort of personal finance software or spreadsheet or pen and paper or whatever.
Oh, if you want to get all purposeful, then go ahead.
There we go. Peter, living with purpose.
Yeah. No, you're right, though. Because, there's a reason to do it, right? We're not just going to... A person shouldn't just go out there and buy software just because it's like, oh, hey, you know what? I heard this is really good to have, and somehow I'm going to be organized.
2 years resolution.
$50 or something. Right? Because that's not going to be the case.
Right, yeah. So one of the most important things about getting your finances in order is actually tracking your money so you know what's coming in, what's going out, when it all happens, and then it helps you plan. I use my personal finance software to look ahead and plan. So not only do I use it to track what's going on in my personal finances, I also use it to give me a look ahead, figure out what bills I have coming up, what income I can hope for. This is what happens when you're in a variable income. But it's a great way to look ahead as well as figure out where you stand.
Yeah, same thing for me. It's key to know what's coming in, what's going out, and what kind of money is slipping through the cracks, because I think that's one of the biggest things that happens if you're not tracking your money in some sort of software or whatever. You're going to be having money that's just slipping away into the ether that you'll never even see. At our house, it was key to start tracking just because we had so many little expenses that we didn't even really think about that over time added up to hundreds or thousands of dollars that we could have been using for something else to invest or whatever. So,
and I think in this day and age of automation and online this and that, it used to be back in the day you had to balance your checkbook. You had to take that checkbook, you had to get your bank statements and see what was going on in order to follow where your money was going. But those days are kind of like gone. Everything just happens so quickly that it's very easy to not look at your money at all and just kind of hope for the best.
I balance my accounts every month. I don't use a checkbook, but
I don't think
but I go through the process of doing it every month.
It's not the norm that it used to be when you had to balance your checkbook in order to find out where your money was. Things happen and it just,
you're right.
You don't have to do it anymore. So I think a lot of people just sort of, it's a skill that's faded away to some degree. So having some sort of software that you could go, okay, what's going on to keep yourself accountable is important. And, for me, the software makes it convenient and up to date. If I need to find something, I can find it now. I don't have to do a whole lot of mumbo jumbo with adding things and searching for a lot of different things. So for me, that's important. What else?
Having the software can be important for helping to set goals, for savings goals that you want to reach. If you want to set up an automated investment program, start saving for retirement or whatever, using some sort of software can be extremely helpful in doing that. You can kind of visualize where the money's going and how it's going to grow over time. So goal setting, I think, is a big one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not just not just checking accounts or savings accounts. It's also investing in money and all sorts of other things too, right? You could buy bonds now. When I was a kid, my grandmother bought me bonds all the time, and that meant that I kept them in a small envelope hidden in a drawer somewhere. But now you don't even do that. You buy them all online and track them. So that's a type of software right there that you could be using. So what else? Where do we go from here? We've talked about our purpose.
Let's talk about what we use.
Let's do it. Throw it in there. Who's gonna toss one out there first?
Well, what did you guys use back in the day before all the easy stuff came out? I mean, back in the day, I was using an Excel spreadsheet or something to track a lot of this stuff, and that was just a huge pain in the butt. You had to enter everything manually, and you could do a few things automated by putting in some formulas and stuff in your spreadsheet, but it could be a huge pain to track this. I mean, this wasn't that long ago. This is maybe 10 or 12 years ago that I was doing that. But
I still use Excel for my business. It's just something about sort of the different sources and stuff and getting it all collected. So yeah, I was, and I certainly had to use Excel in the past before all these other awesome great tools came out.
Yeah. So I'm interested actually in hearing more about Kyle because he doesn't use personal finance software. So I would love to know why he doesn't.
He's kind of
maybe I'm just an irresponsible guy. I'm not sure. I guess the other thing is my sort of family unit finances are I guess probably fairly simple compared to most because it's just my wife and I. And so basically, I do my banking, and my bank has a pretty good software or online presence, I should say, not software related. And you can track things pretty easily, I find. And my discount brokerage is recently really upped their game, and they also track things. They can put a nice graph for me and organize it however I want. Maybe it's just I don't have as much money as you guys. It's just not as much to keep track of. So if I don't have as many assets and money, maybe that's the ticket to making it without software.
It also sounds like you keep it a lot simpler, though. I've gotten a different form of account with all 5 major Canadian banks, so it's to be able to bring that all together in one place, I'd be lost without it.
Yeah. So what do you do, Kyle, as far as like keeping track? I mean, do you use pen and paper, or do you just sort of look at it every now and then?
Well, what I simply do to track it is at the end of every month, I look at my bank statement and I look at my credit card statement, and those are really the only 2 statements that affect my income and outcome, and then make sure that I'm meeting my savings goals, and then I wire that savings amount to my discount brokerage and quickly buy index funds with it that don't track cycles.
Nice, very nice.
And so that's really it. I mean, like I do have goals that I set for monthly and yearly, and for my wife and I, and as long as I'm meeting those goals and I check my outputs on my 2 statements, and that's it. That's my whole system.
So do you have like very few expenses then, so you don't have to look really hard about, oh my gosh, I've got this whole big list of stuff and I've got to be able to match it up?
Yeah. Again, I live. It's not, maybe this isn't like the best or most applicable for everyone else out there, but I live in this rural area, so there's like maybe 7 or 8 days a month where I have any transactions. Just because what do I pay for on a daily basis? I go to work or I blog. So so it's sort of one of these things where I might have 10 to 12 transactions in my bank account, and my payment is all in one lump sum at the end of the month as a teacher. And then I maybe, between my wife and I, have maybe 25 credit card transactions, just purchasing day-to-day stuff, I would say, on average. And it's pretty easy to look and just check and see where the money's going month in and month out.
It's interesting. I mean, does a personal finance software have to be something that you buy outside of it? Like you said, you're a brokerage account and your banks, they're pretty robust on their own, showing you a lot. And it wasn't that long ago, I talked about balancing your checkbook where, if you didn't have that statement mailed to you, where were you going to go for that information? But now it's at your fingertips with most banks.
And it's cloud-based and it's quite secure. I mean, as secure as anything else can be these days. Again, I don't have a big enough deposit that our insurance in Canada doesn't cover it. So anyway, they've gotten much better the last 3 years, both the brokerage and the bank, and I can access them from any platform, any technological platform. And so that's it for me. Now again, I don't. My investments are very simple. I don't have big real estate holdings or anything like that. So perhaps I'm not the best guy to be looking at complicated software features.
No, I think that's a good idea because, I mean, really my financial management is maybe like a step above that. When I use my personal finance software, I use MoneyDance, and it basically looks like a ledger that I have on my computer. It's basically Quicken 2005 for Mac. Is what it's closest to. And if anybody remembers Quicken 2005 for Mac, it was really awesome. And then now Quicken looks like Mint, and it's horrifying. So, because Mint is not my thing. I know lots of people like it, and that's cool. If it works for you, that's awesome, but it's not my thing. And I absolutely refuse to connect mine to my bank accounts. I keep it separate. I put everything in manually. It looks like a ledger. It's very... And really, basically, all it does is help me reconcile it at the end of the month. It makes it really easy for me to reconcile all of my accounts at the end of the month. But basically, I have the same kind of basic structure. I've got everything on my credit cards because that's what I do. And then I just pay the credit card off at the end of the month, and it's perfect. So I'd love to know what else is going on in there.
Well, I mean, like you mentioned, you mentioned Mint. I've been using its, I guess its sister product or big brother product, Quicken. Quicken for Mac. I think it's the 2015 version. I have it on. I'm so
sorry, Glenn. I'm so sorry.
But what I like about that, I think every one of these softwares have their quirks, right? So it's whatever works best for you, and I think that's important for people who are listening out there. You have to kind of understand what it is that you're looking for and what's going to work best for you. What I like about Quicken is that because it's connected, I could see everything there, and I'm allowed to enter transactions in as I'm doing them. So if I, go food shopping, I could pop it into my phone, and it's there to be accounted for immediately. So like I'm sort of balancing my account as it happens, where a lot of other softwares, it's sort of after the fact. So once the bank updates, then you could see it in the software. So sometimes that's a little bit slow for me. Like if I'm writing checks, and I actually still do write a bunch of checks, I want to know that it's in the account before it's being cashed. This way, I'm balancing my checkbook in a way, and Quicken allows me to do that. So that's what I like about it. I've seen a couple of other softwares that don't have that functionality. So as I do have some complaints about it, but that is really what I like about it best, and that's why I've been sticking with it so far.
Yeah, for me, I started way back in the day with a product called Microsoft Money. This is years and years ago, and I loved it because it had all sorts of functionality as far as downloading directly from your banks. You could have a ton of different reporting, and it was just a fully functional software that had pretty much everything I needed. Over time, the product kind of got sunsetted by Microsoft, and they stopped updating it, and they stopped making it. So I ended up having to move off to something else. And a few years ago, I started using You Need a Budget. Back when it was still kind of a beta product at the time. It wasn't super fully functional at the time, but it's changed over the years. Gone through 4 or 5 different iterations, and they just released a new web-based version recently. But I currently use the desktop version. It's called YNAB 4, and it's, again, you're just going in, you're entering your transactions every month as you do them, and then you could download your transactions from your bank at the end of the month and kind of reconcile everything, make sure you're not missing anything or anything like that. And for me, it's just a great way to kind of just stay on top of it day to day, where the money is going. We can run reporting against, different categories. And also it allows us to run a zero-based budget. Basically, we're giving every dollar a job. So every dollar that comes in is either going out to an expense, a saving category, or something else. And we can see all that stuff in the software as it happens. So we can see, okay, we've only got $50 left for eating out this month, so we know we got to kind of think about where we're going to go out to eat or whatever. We're not going to go spend a ton more money on eating out, or we know, okay, we've only got $50 more for entertainment or whatever. So it's a good way to stay on top of your budget and kind of make sure you're not having all these money leaks every month.
And that's an interesting perspective that a lot of other softwares may not touch on so much. That's kind of like core to what You Need a Budget has, that every dollar has its purpose and that you're going to make sure that you follow what's in there, and you have to actually go in there and give it that purpose. So that I think that's like a really nice personalized way of looking at your money and making sure that it's there. I know some other softwares do have some goal setting purposes as well, but I know that's a big focus of YNAB.
Yeah, and one of the things I like about using MoneyDance is that I can schedule transactions ahead of time. So a lot of the time I'll schedule in the bills I know that are coming out. Well, really it's just the car payment and because everything else is on a credit card. but yeah, you can look ahead and see what's coming up, what you're doing, and then I can click it in there, and even though it's not coming up till like the 15th or whatever, I can click it in and enter it in as if it's coming up, and it'll put it on the 15th as a future thing. So I can put those in there and see how much money I'm going to have left, because I do like to know how much money I'm going to have left because I spend till it's gone. So, yeah.
Well, and Quicken has a functionality like that too, where
Yeah.
you'll have your recurring expenses so that you
Right.
know, let's say on every 15th you have to pay whatever. It'll sort of learn that to a degree, and it'll pop out and look for that sort of transaction and give you a little bit of a heads up going, okay, you know what, we're looking like we're getting in the red there. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
So I have a quick question for you guys that do make good use of software programs. Do you think that they have made you a more efficient personal finance person, or do you think it's just like it's made you quicker? I just wondered, like, how many people when they use this new software make use of like all the beautiful graphing features and the goal setting features? Do you think it's sort of like a chicken and egg thing for those of you guys that were using spreadsheets before anyway, or does it actually really help?
I think it helps me. I use Mint and I have everything automatic. If I had to write everything down in a checkbook like my dad did, I think I'd probably get behind because I'm too busy to be doing that. I'm really good at reviewing what's in there. I like that I get emails and app updates and stuff whenever there's anything questionable or large or anything like that. So I feel like I'm constantly on top of everything. Glen mentioned how sometimes banks can take a while to update. The banks I use lately seem to be pretty immediate, like same day kind of updates, and that makes it into Mint. So I saw the delay in the past, but lately,
It's
I'm
not
on top
always.
of things.
Sometimes, like, let's say you get gas, and use a card. Sometimes it takes a day or two for those transactions to even hit. So it's that type of thing. So if I can enter it in as it's happening, I know it's in there. Or if I have a check, I know it's in there. Like this day and age, most things do happen pretty quickly, but sometimes it doesn't all go through.
So here's something I was wondering, Glenn. If you put it in manually and then it comes in from the bank later, does
It'll match.
the software know how to match it and then like cancel it out so it doesn't look like two of them are being done?
Usually, it'll know. It'll see it. Obviously, if you enter something wrong and put the wrong penny amount or something like that, it's not going to know. You're going to have to still go in there and do something with it. So the software, that's one gripe I have, is that it's not completely automatic, in that some things you still have to go in and kind of keep reteaching it, and do. But for the most part, it will catch those things that you put in and match it. It's good at recognizing the names for the most part. But
Yeah.
to get to Kyle's question, I think whatever software you're using, it still depends on the person. So like a to-do list is only as good as a person actually looking at your to-do list and doing what's on there. The software that you pick is still up to you to go in there and do whatever it is you're going to do with it. If you're going to get like say YNAB and you're not going to give purpose to all your money, that might not be the best software for you. So it really depends on what you're doing with it and whether you're going to care about those features.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think YNAB, their new version that came out recently, it's not nearly as full featured as the version that I'm using currently. It's more of a web-based version, and just to release the product, when they released it, they didn't include some of the reporting features, the searching functionality, and a couple other things as well, which, some people that want things to be more automatic and just kind of happen on their own, they were happy with that because they weren't going to use a lot of the extra stuff anyway. Myself, I find some value in a lot of that stuff, and I actually use it, so I wasn't as excited about that. So, like Glenn said, it is really down to the person whether they're motivated to actually use what's available to them. And when it comes down to it, you need to figure out which tool is going to fit your style the best. YNAB may work well for me, it may not work at all for Kyle.
Yeah, and I like what you and Glenn were saying about figuring out what tools. Mint isn't really my style. To me, it feels like it's catching up with what you're doing. And I know that they've made a lot of changes, and Quicken can kind of work with that, and you can plan ahead. But I really like the fact that once a week I sit down with my receipts and I put them all in manually, and I look ahead and I see what's going on, and it's just sort of this process that I have that makes me feel like I'm engaged with my money, and where I use this like kind of ledger system, and I have my credit card accounts in there, and I've got my investing stuff in there, and I just sort of go through and look at it, and I really kind of like that because I feel like I'm interacting with my money to some degree. And so that works for me, but I know there are a lot of people who are just like, I do better if I can just have Mint take care of it all, and then I can run a report and look for trends.
Yeah, I mean, one gripe I have with Quicken is it seems to always want me to authenticate an account. So every now and then it'll be running smoothly, and then all of a sudden, like one bank just kind of pops out, and I have to put it in, and it just gets all quirky and doesn't work for a while, so it doesn't update. Then when it does update, I have to go in and make sure everything is balanced out. So that's kind of a pain for me. And then it's one gripe I have with that. I don't know if it's just my banks or what, but
I think that's a pretty common thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it with Mint too. I think it's probably more on the banks than the apps a lot of times with that. When things change and how they connect and
security measures. And I know sometimes they change the way that they do things, and you have to change things there too. But that annoys the bejesus out of me.
And I think it's worth noting. I did say I do use MoneyDance, and I put everything in manually, but that is a software that does have a connectivity. You can connect it to your bank accounts if you want. It's just something that I refuse to do.
Now, another software that I use, and not often, but I use it, is Personal Capital.
Oh yeah, that's a good one to mention.
Where you can see all of your investment accounts. Now, I can see in my investment accounts also in Quicken, but it just seems to be a little more robust in Personal Capital as far as how you're allocated, and you can see your fees, and it does a lot. They have the phone app and everything. My only problem with Personal Capital is that I can't put in the transactions as I'm doing them. And that's the difference between that and Quicken. Like if they had that functionality, where it's like, okay, I just went food shopping and spent X amount. If I could put that in now before it hits, that would be awesome. Then if I could update it. And to me, sometimes Personal Capital is a little bit too much, like too big of a macro look, because I'm looking at everything. Like it gives me the value of my house. It gives me this, that, and I'm like, well, wait a second. I just want to know whether I could buy this without going, without bouncing
an
a check.
overcharge fee. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I actually like about Personal Capital. I use it as well, and I kind of use that as my overall just big picture look. I can just go into it on a certain day and take a look and see, okay, this account has gone up, this has gone down, those 5 transactions hit this account, and those other ones hit too. I use YNAB on more, micro level. I use it for budgets and spending categories and all that, all the day-to-day entry of transactions and so forth. So I have kind of a two-level thing. Personal capital, if I'm out and about, I just need to do a quick look at my accounts. I'll jump in there and take a quick look there. So
yeah, I think it's a little more similar to what I'm doing. Like if I want to see my retirement accounts and everything else, like, has everything moved and everything, I could see it that way. And I could still see my bank account in there too. But if I really want to catch up and see where it is, I either just go to my bank or I'll look at the Quicken stuff.
Yeah, and I can't remember what I was going to say.
But I mean, and that's interesting because I do use my bank's app often as well. It's come a long way, and now I can't remember the last time I went and brought a check to a bank, or even put a check into an ATM machine. Like I thought that was the greatest technology in the world, that I could just put a check into the ATM. But now I just find some dark paper, throw it on there, and take a couple pictures, and I'm done. Which to me is incredibly useful.
Yeah, and another thing I've done is I've added one of my credit cards to the wallet on my iPhone, and so I here in Idaho Falls, I don't get to use my phone to pay for anything, but what does happen is whenever I use my card, whenever I use this credit card, it just comes up a little notification on my phone. It doesn't buzz at me or make anything obnoxious, but it just shows up, and that's really useful because that's the credit card that's attached to like the iTunes account or the Amazon account, and so I can see when my son is doing things like buying apps while I'm on a business trip, and I can come home and say, you don't have $50 to buy coins and make in-app purchases, so now I'm going to loan shark you, and you're going to make payments to me out of your but it's great because it notifies me when these credit cards are being used, and it kind of just helps me. It's been very helpful in terms of now that I've got a son and these financial things happening, and it would have been very useful when I was married as well, but I didn't have that option back then. So
I just started using the Android Pay on my Android phone too recently. Put a couple of my credit cards in there, and pretty much everywhere around us takes that. Now you just bump your phone up against the register, and then it automatically pays. So it's pretty nice. But what I like about it is I don't have to carry about 30 different receipts around in my wallet and get back pain because my wallet is so thick now.
The George Costanza wallet?
Exactly, the George Costanza wallet. Instead, I get a little notification on my phone and an email in my inbox, and it'll remind me I got to enter it into YNAB later on, but I don't have to carry around a bunch of receipts and lose 5 of them or whatever.
Does that automatically give you a receipt on that, or is it just that it hits your credit card and you see it there?
You can set it up to receive. You can set it up to receive emailed receipts, or I just have mine. It just shows up in the notifications, and I can just flip it over on my phone, and it'll show me, my last, however many transactions. I can scroll down and look at them all and make sure they're all in my my personal finance software.
Because can I say I love the idea of an emailed receipt. To me, I'm like a receipt hoarder. I'll even keep them in my pocket for until my pocket is about to blow up, George Costanza style. Then I just dump it out somewhere, and then it just sits there. And it's like if I need it, I have to go piling through it. And then these are all these this thermal paper. So if it's 3 months old, it all sort of disappears. It's like invisible ink all of a sudden. Or it just gets to a point where you can't read it anymore, so it's not useful. Whereas the ones that are the email ones, I just go into my email server, type in something, and all of a sudden I just see everything again, which to me is that is incredible. It's almost as incredible as just being able to scan a check.
Yeah, well, and so I've started getting a lot of the email receipts too, and then I set up separate folders in my email for business and charity, because I have my charitable contributions set up to pay with my credit card to these different organizations that I send regular donations to. And so they send me an emailed receipt. And so I have different folders set up in my email for business, for taxes, for charity. And so that all just is, I can just quickly archive it in the proper folder. And easy for my taxes, easy for everything else.
It does make things organizing a lot easier, right? So what else do we have to say about personal finance software? Do we have like the one ring that rules them all?
Sounds like we've all got different ways of doing this.
Which is interesting.
Put it this way. There's a different finance software out there for everybody. I once did a post just trying to bring together a list of all the different personal finance software, and I stopped at around 75 or 80 different software, just because there are so many of them out there. I think the key is to figure out what's going to work best for you. What do you need the software to do? What do you want to track? Are you going to be doing a full budget, or you just want something to kind of keep an eye on things, and then go from there? Kind of figure out what will fit your needs.
That sounds like a really good final word.
That's my final word. I'm sticking to it.
Look at that. Yeah, how's that for jumping there? So Tom, what's your final word on personal finance software?
Well, just like I said, I don't like to enter anything manually. I think I also certainly don't like the paper or anything too. So if anything for me that can be automatic and digital, just kind of makes it so much easier for me to digest.
Miranda, what's your final word on personal finance software?
Yeah, once again, just look for what works really well for you. I personally like the whole manual process of it. It's really kind of a weird juxtaposition because I automate most of my finances, my retirement account, my travel fund, my emergency fund, all of my car payment, my charitable donations, for heaven's sake. All of that is automated. But then I like to be able to go in and manually check everything out as well. So, but yeah, go figure out what works best for you. And if you don't need personal finance software, great. And if you want something that does everything for you, that's also great.
And Kyle, what's your final word?
Well, as the guy that's back in the Stone Age on this, I guess what I'll encourage everyone to do is say that no matter what personal finance software or what type of technology you're using to access your budget or your investment plans, remember that the electrical synapses that really matter are up in your head.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all like what's easiest for me to use, and when I'm using it, it helps. I do find that it can almost be addictive, like when you start checking things and you want things to update, and you're like, oh, is it in there? Is it in there? It almost becomes a little bit of a game. But if you're using the software, you're taking care of your money, right? You're caring about it, so it could help a lot. But yeah, find something that you're actually going to use and that you're going to need. Don't waste money on something that you're not going to do anything with. So I think we've had some great suggestions here and sort of like mini reviews for all sorts of different things. And if there's any companies out there that represent the companies that we've discussed, we'd be happy to talk to you because I think we have a lot of good input here. Find what's good for you. Do something. Pay attention to your money. Thank you, everybody. And until next week, be good with your money.
Thanks for joining us on the Money Mastermind Show. Get more information at MoneyMastermindShow.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Google+.